Okay, so to solve this problem, as with any addition problem or subtraction problem with fractions, you always need to begin by asking yourself a question. You need to ask yourself, do I have two fractions that have the same denominator? So if I look at this problem, I see that I have 1/3 and I'm adding 4/6 to my 1/3. So I can see that no, I actually do not have two fractions that are the same, or two common denominators. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the problem and bring it down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this problem in two ways. I'm going to show you two ways to solve the problem. The first way, I'm going to change the denominator of our first fraction, 1/3. So I can see that if I take 3 and I multiply it by 2, let me get the pencil here. If I take 3 and I multiply it by 2, I will get 6. Now, as we learned with equivalent fractions, whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top, because my fraction right now, 1/6, is not the same as 1/3. So if I multiplied my denominator by 2, I also need to multiply my numerator by 2. And I know that 1 multiplied by 2 is 2. So if I were to, for example, draw out, and it's not going to be pretty, but I'll do my best. If I were to draw out 1/3, okay, I'm trying to shade that in there. Okay, if I were to draw out 1/3, and I were to draw out 2/6, I would see, and of course, if I had better tools, I would see that 1/3 and 2/6 take up the same amount of my whole. So they are equivalent fractions. So now what I have here is I have two denominators that are the same. So now that they're the same, I can add them together. And when adding with fractions, your denominator never changes. I'm still dealing in 6. So I'm going to go right across the top, and I'm going to add my 2/6 to my 4/6, and all together I have 6/6. If I have 6/6, that means my whole is completely shaded. It is completely full. So I know that 6/6 is equal to 1. I can also look at this as a division problem. 6 divided by 6 is equal to 1. That's one way to solve the problem. Perhaps you solved it a different way, and if you did, your problem may have looked like this. So I'm going to start fresh again. And instead of changing the denominator on the first fraction, I'm going to change the denominator on the second fraction. I'm going to look here, and I'm going to see that 4/6 could actually be simplified, because both my numerator and my denominator are even numbers. I know that they both have a common factor of 2. So if I know that 6 has a factor of 2, that means I can divide it in half. I can divide it by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Well, would you look at that? Now my first denominator and my second denominator match. They're both in thirds. So again, if I change part of one fraction, I also have to change the other part. So because I've changed the denominator, I also need to change the numerator to keep my fraction equivalent, because 4/3 is most certainly not the same as 4/6. So because I divided 6 by 2, I also need to divide 4 by 2, which gives me 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay, now I have a common denominator. Now I'm dealing in thirds, unlike last time when I was dealing in 6s. So let's see what happens. Does it change our problem? Hopefully not. 1/3 plus 2/3 is equal to 3/3. 3/3. So that means if I had a whole that was cut into 3 pieces, I would have all 3 pieces, which means I have a complete whole. I have 1 whole. Again, you can look at it as 3 divided by 3, and that equals 1. So the actual answer to our problem is 1, although you probably got 3/3 or 6/6 to start, but that answer can be simplified or reduced to the number 1 whole.